Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. And if you are new to this channel, thank you for tuning in. I'm James and you're watching Blue Dog Reptiles. Now today what we're doing is something a little different. We get questions all the time about obviously all of our different reptiles and everything that we keep. But one of the biggest things for us is help promoting education for these different reptiles. Now research is key when it comes to owning any animal. It doesn't have to be a reptile. It could be a fish, a bird, a dog, whatever. And what we're doing here is we're acknowledging and learning more about this animal so that we can take better care of the animal. You wouldn't buy a 6-foot monitor and not have its cage set up properly, because then obviously the animal's going to get stressed, it's going to die, or it's just going to terrorize you because it's going to be running around your house. But research is everything. Now, a couple of different things you need to know when looking for research. A, what type of animal are you looking to get? It's always a good idea to go into a zoo, go into a pet store, figure out what is going to fit your needs. What type of animal are you looking for? Are you looking for something you can handle? Something that you're hands off with? Something that your kids can handle? Or something that just looks really cool? These are all different types of animals that we can have in this industry. But which one is the right one for you? Only research will tell. Now, number 2 is, once we've identified what kind of animal we want, we got to figure out what size enclosure it needs. Are we getting a baby? Does it need to be in a small enclosure? Does the baby need to be in a big enclosure? Or does the enclosure need to be a monster? It all dictates by what the animal is. Now, if it's a bearded dragon and it's a baby, let's say we're going to put it in a 20 long. But guess what? It's not going to stay in a 20 long forever. It's eventually going to be moved to a 40 and then a 75 and then 100, or most people just custom build enclosures because it's more ideal and it's cheaper, truth be told. So once we've identified what type of animal, what size enclosure we need, we also need to figure out what kind of diet does it have. What does it eat? Is it a Uromastic that eats greens? Or is it a turtle that eats greens? Or is it a chameleon that is an insectivore, which means that it eats insects? Or is it a bearded dragon that needs both greens and insects? Is it a dart frog that needs fruit flies or pinhead crickets? Is it a Pac-Man frog, which, truth be told, they're just fatties and they will eat anything that comes by their mouth? These are things that we need to think about before buying animals. There's so much that goes into them, but sometimes we overlook the very simplest of things. Now, once we've identified what it eats during our research, we also need to look into, how do I need to set up its enclosure? Do I need to set it up as a tropical environment? Does it need higher humidity? What temperatures does it need? That brings us into lighting. Does the animal need UVB? Does it need UVA? Does it need a basking spot? Is it like a crested gecko that likes most ambient environments? Or is it like a sulcata tortoise that needs extreme heats just because they like it hot? These are very crucial things to know. Because if, let's say, you have a sulcata tortoise and the environment is too cold, that animal is probably going to get sick, because it's going to lead it to a respiratory. Or if you treat it like a tropical animal and it's a desert animal, it's going to lead to respiratory infections or possibly bacterial infections. If you don't have UV over the top of these animals, it could lead to metabolic bone disease. And if you don't know what that is, go ahead and research that too. And I think you should, because it's a very serious thing with reptiles. Without proper UV, because in the wild they get the UV from the sun. in captivity, we have to make that artificially, which is why we get different UV bulbs, like these. Or, even better ones, let's see if I can not walk backwards here. Better ones would be Arcadias. There are different types of UV, so you need to know what type you need. There are ones that are 8%, 12%, 15%. Then you also have T5, T8, and T10. These are all different types of UV. T8, for example, is something that has a hard time penetrating screen, so it has to be inside the enclosure. Now, if you have an animal like a monitor, they're going to run around that thing and terrorize it. Trust me, I've seen it. T5s are strong enough to penetrate, but the problem with T5s and T8s is they don't cover a lot of depth. That's where T10s come in. When you get these custom builds, like whether they're, let's say, a 4x2x2 or a 4x4x4 or even bigger, that's where T10s come into play because they're rated for a lot more depth. Now, don't get me wrong, can you get a T5 bulb that has the stronger UV to reach at the bottom? Absolutely, yes you can. But you need to make sure that that animal can tolerate that UV, because if you have too strong of a UV bulb, it can actually cause harm to the reptile with too much UV rays. So that's another thing that you need to research. This is why research is so vitally important when we research our animals. Get it? Research, research. Any animal we get, people think that all these reptiles here, they're like, well, how do you know so much? Because every night I'm doing research. If we have new animals coming in that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm doing research, because we set up every enclosure custom to the animal that is coming in. We want them, I don't care if the animal's with me for 2 days or 2 years. We want to make sure that they are as happy as possible for the time that they are with us. So every night I'm doing research on these different animals, and I'm constantly, let's say, bearded dragons. 10 years ago, the research was completely different to what it is today. So I'm having to update my knowledge of research to stay up to date, to provide the best possible care I can for all these reptiles. So we have the type of animal identified. We have its diet, its enclosure, its lighting, temperatures. What's left? Well, what's left is how we set up the environment. Do we want to go bioactive? Do we want to get sand or soil, or what type of environment does this animal need? Key examples are like our green-keeled. It has, you can see his kind of tail, he's kind of hiding over there. And he's just chilling on the top. Green keels are tropical animals. We wanted to give them lots of places to climb and hide and run around. Just because this animal is small now, you also have to think about what it's going to need in the future. And doing so will help you prepare. We have a customer I actually just talked to this morning. He's setting up an enclosure for a baby tegu. But at the same time, he hasn't got the tegu yet. He's preparing because he's doing research. We talked for about an hour today to cover all the bases that he needs to know. But at the same time that he's building the baby's enclosure, he's also building the adult's enclosure. I think it's, what was it? It was 8 by 2 by 4, 8 by 4 by 2. I don't remember. But that shows that this gentleman is doing the proper research that he needs for these tegus before getting the animal. And that's going to be my last point. Before you get your animal, before you bring it home. And I know sometimes with these like reptile shows and stores, we get excited and we're like, I want to take that home today. But if you don't have the setup, if you haven't done the research, if you haven't educated yourself on that animal or that species, it's not in the best interest of that animal to go home with you that day. We here at Blue Dog Aquatics and Reptiles would rather you go home, set up the enclosure, get all the temperature, get all the humidity right, get everything set up, and then come back and get the animal. I would rather educate and help someone research. That way that animal lives a long and happy life. I get tired of hearing that, oh, my bearded dragon lived a great year. I'm sorry, what? It lived a year? These animals can live 15 plus years. That is unexcusable, and that's because people haven't done research. So, do yourself a favor. If you're looking at getting a new reptile, or you want to get one off of a website, or you're on some wait list, get started now. Do your research, get yourself educated, get the enclosure built, get it set up, and then welcome your reptile to your new family. So I hope it helped. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's something that I'm very passionate about with helping, especially these younger generations. I mean, for crap's sake, we have Google. We have Google Scholar. We have YouTube videos for days. There are so many resources out there. There are so many breeders. There are so many experts out there. And that is not calling myself an expert. I am not an expert. I just stay informed. I do my best to make sure that my animals are taken care of. And anybody that works for me knows that I expect the best for my animals. I won't take second best, because that is not fair to the animal. The animal did not want to come home with you. You decided to bring that animal into your family. So you should treat it like family. And with that being said, guys, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. We can't wait to see you next week. And as always, love your family, but love your reptiles more.